Right now, it's the final stretch of the 2022 midterm elections. More than 1 million people in Colorado have already cast a ballot, but many more are waiting until Election Day.
I'll never stop working to protect our freedoms and make living here more affordable.
We've got a lot of work to do. We have a different vision for Colorado.
You're ineffective.
Okay,
look,
you're a liar, Joe.
You're
a liar, Joe. Yeah. You're a liar, Joe.
Our political panel with how the candidates can either seal the deal or close the gap in the final days. And with control of Congress in the balance, what can we expect on election night here in Colorado? That and more right here, right now on Colorado Point of View. I'm Matt Morrow, and this is Colorado Point of View. Count them, just 2 days to go, and finally, it'll be the midterm elections. And right now, the candidates are making their closing arguments on why they should get your vote. But some of the state's biggest races really aren't all that close. Take a look right here. Our exclusive Channel 2 Fox 31 Emerson College poll conducted last week shows Democratic Senator Michael Bennet with a 7-point lead over Republican Joe O'Dea. Meanwhile, take a look at the governor's race. It could very well be a blowout on election night. Our exclusive poll shows Governor Jared Polis is up 14 points over Republican Heidi Ganahl, with just about 3% of voters undecided. Governor Polis and Senator Bennet are using their massive amounts of campaign cash to make their final pitch to you, putting out a final ad that's going to air through Election Day. At the same time, Ganahl and O'Dea have been on the national news, hoping voters right here in Colorado hear their message.
We're not in good shape right now, and people are ready for change. That's why I got in this race. I was really worried about where our United States was headed, and I'm going to win on next Tuesday. I'm fired up.
I'm a voice for parents and people across Colorado who have been ignored and neglected. Our current governor has really done a number on our state.
And on that note, let's get right to the biggest races in the state, and we'll do it with this motley crew this morning. Democratic strategist and senior presidential and gubernatorial advisor Andy Boyan, Republican strategist and director of the Advanced Colorado Institute Michael Fields, and here to help keep these two separated in line, John Frank with Axios Denver. John, thank you so much for being here. He's been covering all of the campaigns very closely for months now. So let's start at the top of the ballot. U.S. Senate, it'll likely be the closer of the two biggest statewide races. John, let's start with you. You're the new guy here. What are you hearing from Senator Bennet and rather Joe O'Dea right now?
Football. Yeah, it's definitely going to be one of the closer ones, but I will say that the polling averages shows at about 10 points. It probably won't finish at 10 points, probably a lot closer to where your poll shows, about 7 points. Bennett's final message is stay the course. It's what we did with a Democratic majority and President Biden in the White House delivered results for people. Right. And he's now already talking about the lame duck session, deliver more results.
Andy, staying the course going to win it for Michael Bennet?
It is at this point, really. It's late in the game, and Michael is so far ahead. It's very tough for Joe to close the gap. Also, his national presence with Jake Tapper the other night didn't do him any favors either.
Michael, do you agree with that?
Well, I think it's narrowing some. It showed that in the last poll from the Emerson poll, the Fox 31 poll that came out. But basically, it is late in the game. You have a lot of ground to make up if you're Republicans. The one encouraging thing is that the top issue is the economy, right? Inflation, cost of living. That's the message that Republicans are pushing. And still, over half of the people will vote in the last 4 days of this election. So a lot of ballots still out there. There is a national wave coming. Does it hit Colorado? That's the bigger question. But the polling does show it narrowing some, but a lot of ground to make up.
You talk about that issue of the economy. If Republicans are talking about it here and across the country, saying this is the #1 issue, people in our poll have said it is the #1 issue, why are so many people here in Colorado, according to our poll at least, saying Democrats, you're the ones I want to try to fix what's going on right now?
Well, I think, to John's point, really staying the course and proving out what has happened in the past, which is typically under Democratic control in the White House and in Congress, we tend to have better control of finances. We've reduced the deficit $1 trillion plus since Biden's been in office. So while there is record inflation, there's worldwide record inflation. So this blaming of Democrats or blaming of one Democrat over another for the inflationary issues around the nation makes no fiscal sense.
Well, what I would just say on this is the Republicans are winning winning the people who say that that's the top issue, right? 40% of Coloradans say that the economy is a top issue. Republicans are winning them.
Well,
the
they should be
problem
leading then, and they're not.
No, the problem is the other issues, right? That people who say that abortion is their top issue or climate changes are going more Democratic. And so there's a lot of unaffiliated voters out there. There's a lot of undecided people that haven't voted yet. And so we'll see. But I think, on the economy, they do trust Republicans more.
John, final word on this topic to you.
Well, the bottom line is the Colorado economy is pretty good. And it has been pretty good under Democratic control. Can they take full credit for it? Absolutely not. And will we potentially face a recession? Yes. Governor Polis is even warning about it himself just days ago. But right now, voters are trusting them.
All right, let's go to the governor's race quickly here. Heidi Ganahl has a lot of ground to make up if she is going to win, some 14 points, by the way. John, what is the Ganahl campaign doing in these final days to try to at least get that down to make it interesting?
She's doubling down on her message all along, which is appealing mostly to conservatives. She's labeling herself a mad mom, which came out of one of the last debates. And that was her moniker for herself. And she's holding rallies with women and trying to eat into Polis's lead among unaffiliated suburban women. But so far, it just hasn't shown up in the polls, and I'm not sure it's going to on Election Day either.
Michael, what do you make of that?
Well, Jared Polis knew it was going to be an uphill battle going against him to start out with. His approval rating has been much higher than any other Democrat. He has a lot of money. Heidi Ganahl struggled to raise enough money to get the message out there, get her name ID up. I think that's one of the problems. But I also think it's why you've seen Republicans invest so heavily in the state Senate and say, you know what, if there is a Governor Polis, if there is a state House that goes Democratic, how can you stop some of this legislation that they don't like on cost of living, on crime, et cetera? And so you've seen a lot of resources move into the state Senate seat, knowing that Governor Polis is hard to knock off.
All right, we'll talk about the state Senate races coming up in just a few minutes. Andy, is this race basically over? Governor Polis going to be celebrating early Tuesday?
It's over. It's the first time I've ever heard Michael talk about this in the past tense. But the race is over, and Heidi Ganahl, very favorable as a CU regent and popular among the regents, and a good person, will lose this race on Tuesday.
Okay, I mentioned our exclusive poll with Emerson College. Take a look at some of this. We broke down some of the major statewide candidates in their races and their support coming from their own party. Take a look right here. These 4 Republicans did not get 90% of support from those surveyed who are registered Republicans. You can even see right there, Heidi Ganahl looking in less than 80%. Meanwhile, the poll shows Colorado Democrats seem to be more in line with their candidates, all of them getting just about 90% when you round up there from Michael Bennet. Michael, what is the deal with Republicans supporting the party's candidates?
Yeah, I think one thing is that their name ID isn't high. People haven't heard of a lot of these people before these races. And so you have incumbents running on the Democratic side. They're well known with the Democratic base. And so I think that's part of it. A few of them have issues that the base might not agree with. But ultimately, this comes down to unaffiliated voters in Colorado. And so these numbers are close enough that if you win unaffiliated voters, you can win these races. The problem for Republicans is so far that hasn't been happening. And so I think you look at it, it's a name ID thing. It is a couple issues. And incumbents running as Democrats.
Do you see that, Andy?
I do, but I'll tell you, as a political strategist, really the job of a political strategist and a campaign manager is to make your candidate's name known. Nobody knows who John Kellner is, with all due respect. Nobody knows who Pam Anderson is, with all due respect. And in those races, the job of the campaign is to get them known. So if Republican strategists are saying their name ID is a major problem, then the campaign has failed.
All right, Pam, John, you've been around the state. What are you hearing about the name recognition or the lack thereof, particularly from the Republican candidates?
Well, the down ballot Republican candidates are trying to latch on to the top of the ballot, the Joe Days, the Heidi Ganahl, but even they are very well known. What I see in those numbers, and my big question from the lack of full-pledged Republican support is, are those Republicans or are those Trump voters? And will the Trump voters come out for candidates in Colorado that don't necessarily align with them? Some do more than others, such as Heidi Ganahl aligning with Donald Trump, but Joe O'Dea certainly doesn't. Pam Anderson certainly doesn't. So for me, that's a real interesting question of whether the base will stay solid.
All right, we talked about some of the down ballot candidates. Take a look right now. We have those for Secretary of State and AG. Both of the polls for these races show that the Democrat is ahead. Jenna Griswold up 48-43 over Pam Anderson. And then we take a look at Attorney General. A lot of ads out for this. The poll shows that the current Attorney General, Phil Weiser, 49-41 over the Republican in the 18th District, District Attorney John Kellner. These down-ballot races, Andy, will the big support for Governor Polis and the fairly good support from Michael Bennet carry these Democrats?
I mean, it will naturally. That's naturally what happens in big-ticket races with down-ballot candidates. But also, I mean, on their own merit, Phil Weiser's done a good job. And despite some of things that are said, people are generally satisfied with Phil Weiser. The same with Jenna Griswold. Jenna has won national awards on behalf of the state of Colorado for her electoral process. It's been admitted on this show from Republicans that she does a good job. So, I mean, I think in their own merit, they're doing a decent job, and it also down ballot will carry it as well. So,
Michael, you.
Well, I want to clarify that I didn't say that, so it was a different Republican if somebody said it. But I think these races are interesting because I think Treasurer is probably the one that wasn't polled and is going to be the closest of them. Pam Anderson, for example, is winning unaffiliated by like 1 point in the poll. That one's much closer. And so, if Republican support comes, if unaffiliated start breaking more that way, that race could be closer. But really, the amount of money is the story in this, that Jenna Griswold, Phil Weiser have raised an enormous amount of money and have outside money coming in a way that Pam Anderson and John Kellner have not. And so I think, the fact that they're able to have high name ID, have big Democratic support, puts them in the driver's seat right now, but these are still competitive races down the stretch.
All right. 10 seconds.
Yeah, the numbers just tell the entire story. The one to watch, like Michael said, is the treasurer's race. A super PAC just formed and dumping $100,000 in TV ads to support Democrat Dave Young. That's the one to watch. That's a sign that he might be soft.
Okay, we will see. And a reminder, I've talked exclusively one-on-one with all the major candidates in these races about the campaign. You can check that out in full anytime at kwgn.com/COPOV. Up next, to look at some of the biggest races for Congress right here in Colorado and why they could very well help Republicans take back the House. But before we go to break, a sudden and a heartbreaking loss this week. House Minority Leader Hugh McKean passed away last Sunday. Simply put, he was a great guy. He was so warm, so jovial, so positive. You meet him once and he makes you feel like he's your best friend. Hugh brought an unmatched energy to the state house. He cared deeply about Colorado and the people he served with, no matter the letter next to their name. He really was one of a kind. Lawmakers will hold a memorial service for House Minority Leader Hugh McKean on Tuesday. He'll lie at the State Rotunda at the Capitol this Thursday, and he leaves behind 2 adult children, Aiden and Hannah, along with his partner, Amy Parks. Hugh McKean was just 55 years old. We'll be right back.
I'm Barb Kirkmeyer. Yadira Caraveo and Liberal Democrats voted to legalize fentanyl possession. You heard me. They legalized fentanyl.
Well, you're back right here at your local election headquarters, taking a look at one of the closest races in Colorado and possibly in the country, that for the 8th Congressional District. The Republican right here, Barb Kirkmeyer, put out this controversial ad claiming her opponent, Yadira Caraveo, and state Democrats legalized fentanyl. But that part of the ad is simply not true. The 2019 bill the ad references made possession of 4 grams or less of fentanyl a misdemeanor. It did not make fentanyl legal. This year, the legislature made more than having 1 gram of fentanyl a felony. Again, nothing was legalized. But the bottom line with this ad is it shows you how much is at stake in the 8th Congressional District. Andy, I want to start with you. We know this race is going to be close. Do you think Barb Kirkmeyer, is the Republicans' best chance for a big win in Colorado?
Well, I think one of the only chances that Republicans have to win in a congressional seat in Colorado is Barb Kirkmeyer. I think that's probably the closest race. I think it'll be fascinating to watch. I think we'll be here late in the evening watching it. The thing that I'm really disappointed about in this particular ad itself is that the difference between not telling the truth and a lie is that Barb Kirkmeyer knows that's a lie. And she put it out and she said it twice in the ad. And that speaks to my greater point about Barb Kirkmeyer in general. I'm concerned about her as a candidate and I'm concerned about her as a congresswoman because obviously there's a question about whether or not she's willing to talk about truth versus lie. That was a lie. It was an outright lie. She knew it was a lie and let it go and said it twice. That speaks to the very nature of the kind of person she is. That concerns me a lot. Yadira Caraveo has run a good campaign. She's a good candidate and I hope she wins on Tuesday.
Michael, is that a lie in the ad?
So, I mean, obviously, when you decriminalize something, when you lessen the penalty, that is not making it completely legal. It's not making it, legal. And so, I really believe that she should have used decriminalization as a word. It is something that is relevant. It is something that people are talking about in every campaign across the state. Fentanyl is a big issue in our state. She, as a campaign, has stayed very much on message in terms of talking about crime, talking about cost of living. She's running a very solid campaign. You have seen so much money come into this race. Mm-hmm. It's top 10 in the country in terms of, $16, $17 million already in this race. And so I think Republicans, that is the biggest race of the night. It is the biggest race for Republicans. If they can send 4 representatives to Congress in a state that Biden won by 13 points. That's a huge victory. And so I think Kirkmeyer's run a very solid campaign. I think Caraveo has not run a good campaign at all, hasn't really caught fire at all in that district, and I think Republicans are going to win that one.
All right, John, you and Axios reported that Caraveo and another Democratic congressional candidate, Brittany Pettersen, are actually trying to walk back some of their liberal stances on issues. What are they in particular, and why do you think they're doing that this late in the race?
Well, both are state lawmakers, and both were in comfortable Democratic majorities, so they could say pretty much anything they wanted on the issues and felt comfortable doing so. In this case, both candidates support defunding ICE in a letter that they've now walked back and said that's not something they would vote for if elected to Congress. And in Caraveo's and Pettersen, the issue of fentanyl, just from the ad, that's another one that tripped Democrats up. They had to come back and reverse course, backtrack and acknowledge that they went too far when it came to defelonizing some of the drug possessions.
Okay, we talked about the 8th. Let's go on to the 7th district now with Brittany Pettersen. She's taken on Republican and Army veteran Eric Odland. It's a seat that retiring Democratic Congressman Ed Perlmutter has held for 16 years, but the redistricting has changed the electorate a little bit, including more mountain and rural areas, giving Republicans some hope. So the two met for one televised debate, and afterward, Eric Odland tweeted this, and I quote, "Nancy Pelosi's PAC just pulled $1.1 million out of the District 7 race, abandoning my opponent. But many, including the person sitting next to me, believe the opposite is true." Andy?
Well, with all due respect, I think Eric Odland's a good candidate. I'm happy that Republicans put him up. I think it's Pettersen's race to win. I think it's her seat to claim. Ed Perlmutter's been a well-respected congressman for a number of terms now, and I think Brittany's the natural progression. But I think what's interesting about this race particularly is that it stayed pretty quiet throughout the process. And Brittany Pettersen's a very good candidate, has run good campaigns in the past, and she's somebody who people take very seriously. Eric Odland, with all due respect, an Army veteran, has served his country well and a very viable Republican candidate. So another good watch race on Tuesday night, but I think Brittany pulls it out.
Michael, do you agree?
The race that is being abandoned late is the 8th, not the 7th by Democrats. They're actually putting some more money into the 7th. I think it's an uphill battle. It's because it mirrors the statewide numbers, right? The 7th is very similar to statewide. And you look at some places like Jefferson County, which Republicans used to have more of a stronghold on, have lost totally over the last few cycles. And so this is one that likely goes a Democratic way. But in a big wave election, if turnout is different than what it's looking like right now, it could be a lot closer. But this is one that is going to be tough for Republicans to win.
John, you've covered both of these candidates quite a bit. What do you make of the race being quiet, as Andy said? And, when you look at the 8th, there's a lot of talk coming out of Yadira Caraveo, Barb Kirkmeyer, et cetera. You don't really see nearly as much of that for the 7th.
Well, the 8th is so interesting because it's the 40% Latino district, and it's new. And it's a bit of a wild card. When it comes to the 7th, yes, the boundaries changed, but Brittany Pettersen has represented this district in both the State House and Senate, a good chunk of it, for years now. Furthermore, Eric Odland is aligning himself with Donald Trump more than most of the candidates on the Republican ballot. And Brittany Pettersen is sticking with President Biden, so it makes it a 2020 rematch. And we know how that went already. President Biden won Colorado pretty convincingly.
All right. Nationally, the president is also warning voters about democracy. He's saying that it hangs in the balance this election day, but will that argument save his party's control of Congress? What's on the line, and predictions from our panelists next.
American democracy is under attack because the defeated former president of the United States refuses to accept the results of the 2020 election.
That is President Joe Biden making his final pitch to voters this week, saying the future of democracy is on the ballot this election day, and that Republicans are prepared to fight election results if they are announced. All right, the president hopes that his message will help his party. Take a look here. Our Emerson College poll found that threats to democracy are the second most important issue for voters in the midterms here in Colorado. However, as we have mentioned, twice as many in the poll said economy is the top issue. It certainly is nationally. And on that note, let's make some election night predictions starting nationally. Andy, do Democrats keep the House, keep the Senate? What happens?
I think, predicting long range, into Tuesday night, late into Tuesday night, I think eventually Democrats are going to lose control of the House, but not by nearly the numbers that have been predicted even 60 days ago. And then we hold on to the Senate.
All right, Michael.
I think that it's going to be a quick night for the House. The Republicans are going to pick that up pretty quickly. I also think that it's going to be close, but I think Republicans take the U.S. Senate.
John, what do you think is the thing to watch for, nationally speaking, Tuesday night on Election Day?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is in Colorado and nationally is President Biden is unpopular. Democrats can't dispute that. And midterms, as you've said, as we've all said a million times, are a referendum on the party in the White House. The U.S. Senate is certainly going to be the one to watch. The Colorado seat is a must-win for Democrats. If that gets even marginally close, that could be a bad sign nationally in some of these other races, New Mexico or Nevada, where Republicans have a real chance.
All right, here in Colorado, Democrats have swept statewide offices now 4 years in a row. Michael, does anything change with that on Tuesday night?
I think it's possible. I think something like the treasurer's race could flip. I think some of these races are going to be closer than some of the polling showing, but I think it's going to be an uphill battle to get all these other statewide seats.
Andy, what do you think Democrats are going to be celebrating Tuesday?
I think we're going to have a big celebration Tuesday, particularly statewide. I think we're going to win all the statewide seats that we are maintaining now. Plus, I think, there are races that are going to be closer than we think. I disagree respectfully with Michael. I think 8's going to be a little closer than he thinks. And I think it's going to be a while before we determine who controls the U.S. House.
All right, speaking of the 8th, let's talk about that. Who wins this? Barb Kirkmeyer, Yadira Caraveo? And are we going to know on Tuesday night, do you think?
I think it's going to be a late night, but I think Yadira Caraveo pulls it out.
Yeah, I think Kirkmeyer wins, and it's going to be an early night for that one.
In the middle, John?
I think we're going to be counting minority communities, and Democrats tend to vote later. We're already seeing that in early votes. This is, again, a 40% Latino district. It's also touches part of counties that count a little more slowly than others. So I don't know. I'm not sure we're going to know the results until the morning.
Okay, and then we mentioned this earlier, the state house. Democrats probably going to keep the state house, but the state Senate, there's an awful lot of money being put into 3 or 4 districts that Republicans need if they're going to try to take this over. Do you think they can pull it out, Michael? And what will it take?
I think it's possible. It's a lot of seats because of the flip of Priola to become a Democrat makes it that much tougher, and it might have to be a recall in order for Republicans to get that back. But I think a lot of these races are so close, they could all go the same way, go Republican, or they could all go Democratic. So it's going to be a long night for the state Senate.
Andy?
I think it's great to ask Michael about Priola because he's running the recall, but I think we keep the state Senate as well.
Okay, John, last word to you.
I'm kind of looking at the state house. Democrats are going to maintain control, but just days before he died, Representative Hugh McKean told me potential of 8 seats Republicans could pick up. He feels like they have the right candidates this year and better candidates than ever before. It'd be really interesting to see if his legacy can live on in some of the candidates he helped promote.
All right, and on that note, there's been an awful lot of talk here in Colorado nationally about the candidates that both Democrats and Republicans have gone ahead and put up for state races, governor, and those for U.S. Congress as well. We will have all of your coverage coming up Tuesday night. It starts at 4 o'clock on our news partners, Fox 31. My thanks, Andy Boy and Michael Fields, as always, and from Axios Denver, John Frank. Appreciate your guys' time. We'll see you on Election Day. Have a great weekend.
Go vote.